the first thing that's interesting to us is the growth in live streaming. And the concept is very simple. It's kind of a combination of the home shopping network meets something like Facebook Live with an e-commerce platform on the back of it. So the principles of it are pretty straightforward. It's growing relatively quickly now because of COVID in the US. Amazon is now trying to take the lead in this space. We've seen some Chinese companies investing in European content providers to really try and jump ahead, and we'll get back to that in a bit more detail later. And then in Southeast Asia is one of its bigger growth markets where we're seeing Lazada Live, which is the largest e-commerce player in Southeast Asia. Again, getting a lot of viewerships, a lot of growth in sales through the COVID period. But the place we're seeing it most of all is China, and that's where we're going to show you a couple of examples today, which we think Australian marketers can learn from. So the concept of live streaming is probably only about 4 or 5 years old, but now we're seeing as many as 560 million people download these live stream apps and get involved in live streaming in this market alone. And e-commerce and COVID have been a fuel of this, but we'll show you some fantastic examples of that as well. What's been interesting in places like China is just to see how quickly things have changed. In the last 2 or 3 years, Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, is now connected in with e-commerce solutions. Xiaohongshu, which is the little red book, basically the Pinterest of China, has now become a major e-commerce player as well. And so we've seen some massive changes just in the last year or two, and we expect places like Australia are going to go through such a dynamic change as well. Some of the companies that are using this best are people like L'Oreal. This chat on a new lipstick launch went out to 60 million people and sold 1 million lipsticks. It was one of the first examples of bringing in celebrities for a real live stream event in China. But we're also seeing beyond China cases like Tommy Hilfiger now using live stream as their way to launch their fashion shows, which would typically be face-to-face or in a single market and broadcast later on Facebook or YouTube, are now becoming live streamed. Now, not every category is going to be suitable for this. We're seeing some categories moving faster than others. We're certainly seeing growth throughout the sector, but it may not be for every brand. But you may be surprised as we go through this deck, some of the brands that are really getting involved. And what we're now seeing, obviously, with COVID is a perfect storm of the influencer economy with the social platforms and the need for social distancing. And we've spent a lot of time, helping marketers navigate the whole influencer economy. It's growing very significantly. In some mature markets now, like China, it's as much as 20% of a marketer's overall spend. And it's become a really strategic tool to actually connect closely with consumers. There's a couple of live streamers in China alone that have 37 million views on one stream, which is more than most of the big US TV shows. And VIA sold more than $400 million in a single day in November last year. And what we're seeing now is actually a more strategic segmentation of influencers. And I think what we're suggesting to marketers is it's finding the right combination of these at the different levels. There's no one solution to saying, I must work with a mega influencer or a macro influencer. It's the marketers that have a portfolio that are actually getting the best ROI because they're able to see which levels and which tiers of influencers are working best for them. And what we are seeing now is the best marketers doing this very strategically. So rather than just go to execution and purchasing, which most companies do, sit down and look at what's the strategy, what's the campaign target, what market insights can we gain, and then do a really large resource mix, looking at brand matching, looking at content, and looking at history before you get to the execution and purchasing. And then crucially at the end, really set up the right evaluation metrics so that you can accurately measure each influencer and hold them accountable. So in addition to live streaming, we're also seeing a lot more examples globally of social commerce. TikTok's been very aggressive in this in the last 9 months. Facebook and Instagram, as Mel alluded to, have been very active, and so are people like WeChat, which is now becoming a true global player. What's interesting is this part of the world is actually over-indexing by more than 3 times North America. So you can see that the opportunity for Australian marketers is to tap into what some of the activities are going on in Asia Pacific, really sort of test and learn. And social distancing is only driving this faster forward. Live streaming is also playing a role, but we really are seeing this shift up significantly in the last 3 months. And through a combination of reasons. One is comfort. One is the need for community, which Mel talked about as well. And just the concept of control. And I think wherever you can take friction out of the customer journey, you're going to have a very successful and engaging business relationship. So again, some interesting examples from China, just to show you the diversity of live streaming and e-commerce coming together. Trip.com, one of its worst times in its history, decided to put their group chairman online for discussions about travel packages within the country, and sold more than $38 million worth of packages in just an hour's worth of live streaming. Alibaba owns a supermarket chain now called Hema, which also went to a live stream to sell fresh food. And I think, of all the things to sell on a live stream, fresh food may be one of the more diverse, but one of the more interesting examples of getting quick response and getting product off the shelf quickly. We're also seeing automotive, as the Audi case study talks about on MI3, but I think just some of the stuff that's happening in China is being quite incredible. There's a video here of a local Tesla version called Neo that's been using live streaming and e-commerce to actually drive sales off the mobile phone. These price points are sort of 100,000 Australian dollars, but people are able to go online, click away, and choose exactly the type of battery, exactly the type of exterior, and exactly the type of interior that they want. And you're starting to see the more nimble and future-first companies really driving this to get some ROI. Now, obviously, in any market, it's critical to have spokespeople that are well-known and well-established, and we're starting to see the role of celebrities playing a really critical role in connecting with consumers as well. And on top of celebrities, we're also seeing more story-driven content with live streaming. I think if you go in with the mindset of, well, I'm just going to do a QVB online, you probably won't fulfill the opportunity that live streaming and e-commerce represents, which is you need to create stories and create entertainment in order to drive traffic. So think about live streaming as an opportunity to build relevant content for your brand that can make a difference with consumers. So I guess just to wrap up, a couple of rules of the road we've seen, and I think the first one is really try and give viewers a show and don't just sell. I think this is kind of critical as everyone's first mover steps into live streaming becomes very basic and simplistic. But you really have the opportunity to drive engagement through demonstrations, through celebrities, through story-based content, and actually make a difference in the way that you're going to market. The second is really selecting the right KOL partners. It's very important that you understand what your overall strategy is, find the right level and the right cadence of partners, and then set up the right metrics to actually hold them accountable and measure them in a very direct way. And then obviously do this as part of a fully integrated approach. So it's very much, live streaming alone isn't going to solve your business issues. You need to really understand all of the issues and the initiatives working together in a very cohesive and constructive way.